Men, what is the creepiest thing a woman has ever said or done to you? I bartended at a small dive bar years ago. It was late one night, and I had a lone female guest. She was probably middle-aged, polite, and short with her drink order. Nothing seemed strange, no red flags, so I went about my closing duties, sweeping around the tables in particular, not behind the bar. I was focused on cleaning and getting out of there when I turned around to dump the dustpan, and she was standing right behind me, staring dead into my eyes. "Will you dance with me?" she asked in a slow, nervous manner. For the record, there was no music playing, and we were the only two living creatures in the building. I politely told her I was closing and could not right now, then quickly put some distance between us and walked behind the bar. In the 5 seconds it took for me to walk through the kitchen, she had already gone back to her stool and started hysterically crying at the top of her lungs. She started asking me if I thought she was ugly, fat, unattractive, and several other self-deprecating things. I denied and deflected, but then she screamed that she hated me and ran out of the bar. I rang up the half-finished beer as a waste and locked the door. I worked there for another 7 years and never saw her again. A few years ago, I started hanging out with this girl who was around my friend group at the time and would occasionally join us for trivia nights. At first, things were going well, but then I started noticing some odd signs. She never seemed to sleep. She would do bizarre things, like start her shower, then go cook food, then sit down and begin tending her plants, almost as if she kept forgetting what task she was doing. She even put a sign on her lawn with her cell phone number, wanting to connect with strangers. It got weirder as time went on. I mentioned to her once that I liked thunderstorms, and she became convinced that I could cause thunderstorms. At first, I thought she was joking, but the way she talked about it started to really weird me out. Then, one night, while I was sleeping over, I woke up and saw her just sitting in bed, watching me. She put her hand on my heart and whispered that she could hear the beautiful fishes in my blood. That very morning, her father burst into her apartment, yelling about the psychiatrist appointment she had been avoiding. She told me that her parents and doctors were trying to convince her she had bipolar disorder and wanted to shut her brain off. Long story short, her friends and family convinced her to get help. She bravely took on her mental illness before the manic episodes spiraled out of control, and now, years later, we are very close friends. Back in college, I was at a study group and ended up talking to this girl. We started with class-related stuff and eventually moved on to random topics, life at school, favorite places to eat nearby. Then, after a brief moment of silence, she suddenly tells me that she wants to see me fight off a group of guys trying to attack her, and that she would hold me while I was beaten up and bleeding on the floor. I mean, just randomly dropping that on someone when a minute ago we were talking about the best places to get cheap food was a bit much. I was once on the dating site OkCupid and started talking to a girl. One of the first things I asked her was, "What are you looking for on this site?" Her response was something along the lines of, "Honestly, I'm looking for a sweet young man to take out for a night of drinking, take him back to my apartment, lure him into bed, tie him up, suffocate him until he stops struggling, then donate his skeleton for science. How about you?" Yikes. She also had an actual human skull on her desk and worked with human remains as a forensic anthropologist. I was a bartender for about a decade. One night, 2 couples came in. The girls sat at one end of the bar, the boys at the other. The guys wanted to watch sports, and there were not 4 seats together, so they split up. While they drank, the guys had a conversation about how their wives had low libido and how they were not getting any. Meanwhile, the wives spent 30 minutes talking about which waiters and waitresses they would like to sleep with, down to the detail of what they would do to them. About 10 minutes later, they called me over and told me exactly what they would like to do to me. One of them even wrote their number on a napkin right before they got their table. Every time I hear a married woman say she has a low libido, I think back to that night. Does she actually have a low libido? Or is she just telling her friends all the nasty things she would do to other men and women, while her husband is just a few feet away? A drunk customer, at least, I think she was drunk, because she had never acted like this before, old enough to be my mom, kept hitting on me one day. I was a 21-year-old cashier at the time, and she was a regular customer I had helped tons of times with nothing like this ever happening before. She started with, "Can I tell you something? I think you're so attractive." If it had ended there, I would have been flattered. It is not often I get a compliment like that, and I would have just gone about my day. But then she kept going, talking about how she really has a crush on me, then moving into, OMG, like, you're younger than my son, this is so bad, but I think you're so hot. Of course, this was when my register froze up, so I had to literally bring her to another lane, all the while her remarks were getting more and more forward. She was mostly repeating the same things, but she was winking, and I swear she was caressing her chest at one point. Thank the gods my store was really busy that day. She tried hanging around after I finished ringing her up, kept telling me how into me she was, and how naughty she felt about it. But since I had so many customers, I was able to completely ignore her until she finally left. Haven't seen her since. So, not so much what was said but more about what happened. I had been dating this girl in my late teens/early 20s, on and off for 5 years. We were on our last run, and she had done so many cringe-worthy things during this stretch that I knew it was time to leave. Over the course of those 5 years, I had received a ton of gifts, housewarming presents, and other things from her and her family. I told her we were breaking up for good, and she immediately went off, cheating on me, never loved me, blah blah blah. Then she left. A few days later, I got a letter in the mail, this was the late 90s, that had an inventoried list of everything she and her family had ever given me, including a $300 bill for plane tickets to Los Angeles when we visited her dad 4 years earlier. She had really wanted me to go, so she bought the tickets, but now she wanted to be reimbursed. This list had about 20 to 30 things on it, down to the trash can in my room and the curtains. I laughed it off and went about my business. Then, I came home from work 2 days later and noticed things were missing from my room. The curtains were the most noticeable. A note on my desk confirmed that she had come in and taken most of the things on her list, and that I still owed her $300. It gets worse. I called her and told her that if she returned my things, would not call the cops. She immediately started screaming through the phone, saying those were her things. I hung up and called the cops. They asked if I wanted to press charges. I said no, unless she continued to contact me. The only thing that sucked to lose was my favorite hoodie. The rest was just clothes and random home products. I was more upset that she broke in while I was not home. Then, 2 to 3 days later, I got another letter in the mail. This time, there were 2 letters, one addressed to the dean of social work at the college she attended, and the other addressed to me. The letter to the dean insisted that if he ever heard anything about her in the news, I was the crazy one and that he should overlook whatever was said about her. Her letter to me, in her infinite wisdom, explained that I had forced her to write that letter to the dean by accusing her of breaking and entering and theft and for calling the cops. Easily the most insane thing a woman ever said or did to me. There are many more stories about this woman, but this one is by far the worst. I just wanted to see if you would stay. Now, the reason this was fucking crazy is because, before that, I got a text from her saying she might have missed a period. I said something like, oh, okay. So what if you're pregnant? She volunteered the idea of an abortion. Cool, good shit. I did not have to worry about raising a kid at 16. Keep in mind, we were not even sure yet if she was pregnant. Then, suddenly, she texts me saying maybe she changed her mind and would want to keep it if she was pregnant. So I, reasonably, asked what changed. She just says she might want to keep the kid if she is pregnant. I keep pressing a little, okay, but what's different between now and an hour or 2 ago when you brought up an abortion? She accuses me of pressuring her, calls me an asshole, and stops responding to my texts. A day or 2 later, she tells me she was never even pregnant in the first place and, see the quote above. That is why she went through all that shit. And I guess, since she did not know the kind of person I am, that made it okay for her to do. God, I wish it had ended there. This one time, a girl bragged to me about all the items in her purse that she had stolen from various supermarkets and how it gave her a rush when she did it. Completely unprompted. On the first date. Very strange. Then there was this girl who was trying to walk behind me in the back of a restaurant, in between me and a cart behind her. She kind of bumped into me and had trouble making it through the aisle, then said, it's because of the baseball butt. I asked what she meant, and she said that baseball players have big butts. Then, another time, she just called me baseball butt as a sort of nickname. It was not creepy as much as it just made me really uncomfortable. And then, there was this time after a date where a girl completely catfished me, and at the end, she just said, you want to get out of here? and winked at me in a very seductive way. Not a man, but I remember a former friend of mine in first year who had really bad stalking tendencies. She slept with this guy, I'll call him Dave. She picked up at a bar and got obsessed with him. They hooked up and even dated for a while, but she eventually scared him off. A couple of months after they had broken up, after he had basically ghosted her, I was visiting her place one afternoon. I went to use her bathroom and noticed a pile of nail clippings and some hair on the sink. I yelled out, "Want me to chuck these for you?" And she burst into the bathroom, while I was still in there, seriously, WTF, and yelled, "Don't throw them out. They're Dave's." She got really agitated after that and started trying to convince me to use my thermographic camera, which I had for legitimate, non-stalking research purposes and actually belonged to the university, to night stalk Dave and make sure he was not with another girl. Because, get this, she had sent him over 100 texts that day and needed to make sure he was not cheating on her. Yeah, we kind of grew apart after that. This was back when my friends and I were still into the club/live band scene in college. We went to a bar, had a couple of rounds of beer, not enough to get drunk, but we were definitely having a good time. Then, two girls introduced themselves to us. One looked okay, but the other had this resting bitch face that, oddly enough, was pretty to look at. My friends were like, "Alright, cool, two girls making the first move. Let's see where this goes." The second girl sat beside me, and from the start, she was weird toward me. She would place a beer in front of me and say, "Chug that." I ignored it every time, and she did not seem to mind, but things like that kept happening all night. Almost like commands, she would say, "Dance with me," or "Take a shot." Meanwhile, her friend was just having a normal conversation with my other friends. Then, out of nowhere, this weird girl changed. Like, full-on possession mode. She suddenly glared at all of us with pure hatred in her eyes, just filled with spite, and then scratched one of my friends on the neck. Long story short, we noped the hell out of that place so fast, I sobered up instantly. On the drive home, my friends and I just sat there, stunned, silent. Back when I was 16 and still in school, a female classmate became really obsessed with me. She would send me tons of weird messages, always try to pair with me in science class, and spend a lot of time just staring at me. I was always polite in return but never went out of my way to interact with her. Then she started getting really creepy, and ended up getting me in a lot of shit. At one point, her messages became genuinely worrying, and I did not know what to do. The night things got really bad was when she sent me a picture of my name carved into her arm. I had no idea what to do. In hindsight, I should have told someone right away. The next day, I was preparing to tell a teacher, just anyone, possibly to get her some help. But before I could do that, she started telling people that I had told her to carve my name into her arm. It was a pretty shitty time. That same day, I got attacked at school, the police came to my house, my phone got taken, and I was being treated like a criminal. Everyone, except for my two closest friends, seemed to think I was in the wrong. The next day at school, I got called into the head's office and was told I was being expelled. My parent was called, very angry, and took me home. Did not want to listen to my explanation or side of the story. Thank God that night, the police came back with my phone. They told me they had established that I had nothing to do with her carving my name into her arm. They even apologized and seemed genuinely sorry. They explained everything to my dad and made it clear that I was not in the wrong. The police had also spoken to the head of the school. I was to go back the next day. And when I did, she wouldn't be there. Back when I was 19 to 20 years old, I had a part-time counter job at a local shop. After work, I would go out to my car, and I started finding notes tucked under my windshield wiper. At first, they were casual, things like, "You're so cute, I want to get to know you." There was no name or anything, so I just shrugged it off and went about my business. Then the notes started becoming more frequent, and eventually turned into full-on love letters. They talked about being lonely and wanting to be my girlfriend, but she was too shy to talk to me. At that point, I started to get concerned. I asked my coworkers if they knew anything, but none of them had a clue. They just thought it was hilarious. Then, what really put me over the top, one night, I went out to my car, and there was nothing on my windshield. But when I got in, I noticed a wrapped present with an envelope taped to it. I opened the gift. It was a very expensive bottle of whiskey. I threw it out immediately. I read the letter, and it was super vulgar. clearly from a woman. I still had no idea who was doing this. This kept going for the next few nights, with a different gift each time. A bag of weed, a CD from my favorite band, a gift card to a restaurant. At this point, I was super freaked out and talked to my boss to see if there was anything they could do. They basically shut me down and wished me good luck with the issue. That night, I triple-checked to make sure my car door was locked. And sure enough, after my shift, another bottle of booze and another letter. The next day, I called my boss and quit. Never went back. Never found out who it was. I was at summer camp for blind and visually impaired people, and we were heading somewhere. It was not your traditional summer camp. Anyway, I was on the bus, talking with my friend, when, out of nowhere, he said, "Oh yeah, by the way, there's this girl who told me she likes you, and that she's going to sneak into your room and watch you sleep. She wanted you to know that, or else she threatened to kill me." At first, I did not believe it, but the next morning, I noticed I had lost some hair. And then I was like, what the actual fuck? And it happened every night. The next year I went back, it happened again. That was when I started making sure my window was locked. Then, the night I started doing that, I heard knocking, repeatedly, getting more aggressive. Then a whispered voice. "I know you're in there, insert name here, open the damn window." I noped the fuck out right then and there. From that point on, I always slept with my cane. I am not completely blind, but I still have one. I have not been back since 2018, but I am going this year. Hopefully, that does not happen again. That scarred me. I dated a girl who was pretty damaged and had some serious emotional baggage from a prior relationship. She did not trust me at all because her previous boyfriend had cheated on her, so naturally, that meant all men were like that. She never wanted me going to bars with my friends because, in her words, the only reason guys go to bars is to find girls to fuck. Anyway, one night we were hanging out, and I went home early for whatever reason, I do not recall. At the time, I was in between apartments and staying at my parents' house. At 1 a.m., I woke up and went downstairs to grab a glass of water. As I walked by the front door, I happened to glance out the small window, and what did I see? Her maroon Oldsmobile Alero slowly creeping by the house with the lights off, then coming to a stop at the end of the driveway. She was without a doubt checking to see if my car was there and if I was actually home. Needless to say, I was pretty creeped out. I did not say anything to her because, I guess, I did not want to embarrass her. But a couple of days later, I went home early again, turned out all the lights, and waited. Sure enough, here she comes again. Not too long after that, she introduced me to one of her friends who was absolutely out of my league hot. Then, my girlfriend found an excuse to leave me alone with her friend for a few minutes, who almost instantly started asking for my number and saying things like, "We should hang out." Now, I am not the smartest guy in the world, but this was a setup clear as day. I did not give the friend my number, I left, and I broke up with her not long after. My local vet is a middle-aged woman. She always seemed really caring and lovely. Never had a problem with her, until she started texting me late at night, asking me to get coffee with her. She said I reminded her of her sons who lived far away. I blocked her number when she offered me money. The way she worded it gave me a super creepy vibe. The night I blocked her, my power went out unexpectedly at about midnight. For a moment, I was absolutely terrified that she had cut my power and was about to come in. But it turned out the whole neighborhood had gone dark. The girl I was dating asked if I had changed the locks since breaking up with my ex months prior. I was like, no, but she wasn't a crazy person, so I never worried about it. She told me that if I did not change the locks, she would not feel comfortable sleeping over. So, I changed the locks. The next day, I got an angry text from my ex. "So you changed your locks, huh? Real nice, asshole." So, she had been coming over this whole time, doing who knows what. No, the new girl did not text or know my ex. I met both of them on a dating app in a big city. They had no connection at all. My work schedule was very predictable, so my ex would have known exactly when I was home or not. The girl who suggested I change the locks was super nice and normal, but it did not work out. She was looking for something serious and I was not ready. The creepy ex, even years later, is still obsessing. It is stressful, but I have done my best to cut off all contact. And as for calling the police, when does that ever go well? Especially in a domestic situation. Honestly, I am a little surprised people do not believe this story. Reading other people's experiences, mine seems positively dull. I started a new job and shared a small office with a woman my age, plus a couple of other people. She was kinda cute but also weird and super naive. She had grown up in a very rural area. She flirted with me a lot, but I was not interested. Then she started sending me emails. They were super long, detailing her entire day. And she sent them every day. I never responded. Then, one day, she sent me this long email confessing her love. I replied with the very obvious reasons why it would not work and asked her to please stop sending me emails every day. She did not stop. The emails kept coming. This went on for months. I asked her in person and online to stop, but I still got these email memoirs every single day. Eventually, I had another female office mate, who was her friend, talk to her. Finally, the emails stopped. Bonus. Not too long after, I moved very far away, like other side of the world far away. A few months later, another office mate emailed me asking what city I lived in. I told her. She wrote back saying she had heard crazy emailer was moving there, to this exact small city halfway across the world. That could not be a coincidence, right? I asked the office mate for more details, and it just got creepier and creepier. She was moving into my neighborhood. She had gotten a job nearby. She was looking for an old friend. It was about a week before the old office mate finally came clean. She was fucking with me. A girl who was a good friend of mine in high school shot me down when I asked her out but wanted to stay friends. She started dating my buddy. Cool, no problem, because she would set me up with her friends. I had a lot of fun. Never found a girlfriend, but I had a blast, if you know what I mean. We graduated, went our separate ways, and grew apart while in college. I got a girlfriend, ended up marrying her after college. Not long after I got married, she is still my wife. My old friend started calling me. By this point, she had been married for several years to someone I did not know. We started talking like we were friends again. Then, strangely, she told me she was pregnant, which I responded to with, "Congratulations. Excellent. Good for you guys." She told me before she told her husband. A few days later, she found out they were having twins. Not long after, she suddenly told me she had crazy regrets. I asked, "Oh yeah, what's that?" She told me that we never got together. I told her, "Well, that's because you turned me down and dated my buddy. We were friends." That was when she told me that we should, just once, hook up. I turned her down, but she was adamant that we could. She even said, "I'm already pregnant, so no worries there." I declined. That was when she dropped the line on me. She told me she wished her twins were mine and hers and that she had been in love with me since the very beginning. She said she always thought we would be together, until I started dating someone seriously. I told her sorry, but we needed to stop talking. I think she was having marriage problems and wanted out. She knew I had liked her once, years earlier, and instead of ending her marriage like an adult, she wanted another excuse to blow it up. She also knew I had graduated college and landed a good job in my field, and was trying to blow up her marriage to a blue-collar guy. I noped out, told her we couldn't be friends, and that she should really fix her marriage. Lost her number. Never looked back. I lived a long way away, so she couldn't just show up. I immediately told my wife after the conversation happened. She thought it was funny. She even kept my old friend on Facebook. When I was single, I played the field, so to speak. This was in the heady days of the internet, before smartphones and all that jazz. I met a lot of crazy. A lot of crazy. Probably the weirdest one was this girl I met online on Wednesday, who had progressed to lurking outside my bedroom window by Sunday night. We had met in person on Friday and had bumped nasties, as was the style of the time. The next day, Saturday, I went to a barbecue with her, only to find out it was her family. She introduced me as her new long-term boyfriend. Her mum was asking me about kids and marriage and shit. It was wild. Then on Sunday, I hung out with my mates and went to the movies. I had my phone off for a while, but when I turned it back on, I had 14 voice messages, asking, pleading, yelling at me. She wanted to know where I was and had convinced herself I was cheating on her. Bear in mind, I had met her in person only 2 days beforehand. I just went, bitches be crazy, yo, to my mates and thought nothing of it. Then, at 2 a.m., I got a text. We need to talk. I know you're in there. I'm watching you right now. Girl was outside my bedroom window. I nope fucking nope, and she nearly tore down my door to get in. Then she left a 4-page note/manifesto on my door for me to read. It was an insight into the mind of a crazy woman. Holy fuck. She sort of bothered me for the next couple of months but then found some new guy. Every now and then, I stalk her on Facebook, and she seems moderately sane, maybe. One of those live, laugh, love ladies. I kinda wonder what it would have been like if we had stayed together or gone on a third date. I reckon she would have stabbed me for looking at another woman.